Hi, my name's Alan Milliken. I work for BSF as a supply chain educator. I'm here visiting with the Industrial Crescent chapter of APEX tonight to present on a very important topic, inventory management. Inventory management today involves moving forward through the digital age and digital technology. So I'm looking forward to our time together tonight. Glad to see all the Clemson stuff. I got my MBA at Clemson. My undergrad in industrial engineering is from Auburn, so if it's Tigers, I'm pretty happy, you know. So I've been with APEX since over 25 years as a volunteer, and I've been with BSF 34 years. At BSF, I introduced APEX to the company through a guy named Tom, taught the first CTIM class at BSF. And that, from then, 30 years ago, I implemented the program in North America, facilitated, instructed, and so forth. And then in 2009, we went to Europe. In 2012, we went global. So since we went global in 2012, we've had 1,200 exams taken from 25 different countries. We've had over 200 people certified from 17 different countries. So the program's rolling pretty good. I get great senior management support, as good as it gets, really, you know. So big believer in APEX and a big believer in supply chain. I was supply chain manager at the third largest site in North America for 5 years, 1,500 employees. I had a staff of 46 in supply chain. I moved from there to consulting for 14 years. I worked major acquisitions. I worked major business re-engineering projects, everything from customers to logistics and everything in between, you know. And then in 2007, I had been teaching part-time as a consultant, and I'd been teaching at night for extra money because both my sons graduated from Penn State, and I needed extra money. So I took a job teaching APEX at night. And my vice president called me in December 2007. He said, "Alan, you're doing all this teaching for everybody else. We need some more teaching." You know, he said, "Why don't you become a full-time educator at BSF?" So I did that effective January 2008. It's been quite a ride, really. I love supply chain. It's a very exciting and wonderful profession. So tonight we're going to talk about inventory control in the digital age. Are you ready? And I'm going to give you some tips here and some benchmarks that will help you kind of understand how ready you are, you know. I've divided it into 3 sections: an overview of inventory management, some how-to stuff, and then the digital age. Because we're there now, and we've got to start thinking about that a lot more and putting a lot more energy into it. So, overview. Back in 1997, myself and several other BSF people were assigned to work with PRTM. 7 companies worked with them to develop a maturity model for supply chain. Now, if you think about where technology was in 1997, when we talked about e-business solutions, IT, all these wonderful things, we were talking email and Excel, okay? Email and Excel, that was it, 2 E's. But things have changed quite a bit. But the reason I'm showing this maturity model, it's been around now since 97, and people change the wordings and all these things, you know, but it's basically the same stuff. is you have to move your processes, including inventory management, from being functionally focused to being internally integrated across functions to externally integrating with some of your customers and suppliers, and then what we now call supply chain 4.0, cross-enterprise collaboration. I'll show you what our project's scope and approach looks like on that a little bit later. We've got our first SC 4.0 up and running. And it certainly includes inventory. But Tom mentioned to me when we talked, Alan, be sure to talk some about the digital age from an inventory management perspective. And I said, God, these guys must be 20 years ahead of BSF, because I never would talk about that at BSF. I'm still trying to teach them what safety stock is. But anyhow, we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I want to remind you that knowing where you are in the evolution now is key to developing your next steps in your strategy, okay? Knowing where you are. If you're at level 1.5, don't give yourself a goal to be at level 4 by next month. You know, don't do that, okay? You have to understand, where are we today? You're going to find that you're doing bits and pieces of this level, bits and pieces of this level, you know, and you've got to continue to finish those levels. And sure, you're going to look ahead, and we'll look at that tonight. What is inventory management? I like the APEX definition just fine. The branch of business management concerned with planning and controlling your inventory. Now, it's driven by 3 business objectives: customer service, manufacturing, distribution cost, and inventory investment. We're going to look at that a little closer later. By the way, these 3 trade-offs are really the backbone of supply chain. Really what we are fighting every day of our life. Do I have the right mix of service costs and inventory? Am I spending too much money to get the service I'm getting? You know, am I carrying too much inventory? This trade-off is something we just have to fight all the time in supply chain. Now, we break it down into planning and controlling. So when you look at planning, for your active products, it's not rocket science to reduce inventory, is it? You've got to order less or order later. Now, shortening your lead times can be a factor too. But on a large scale, you got to order less or you got to order later. So it's not really rocket science. So the processes you're going to use, your demand planning, and I'm going to go through an example with you of looking at your demand volume variances to determine what a good stocking strategy is, and can it be forecasted or not. We put a lot of energy in this at our better practice businesses at BSF, because, you know, we don't, in supply chain, we don't turn water to wine. A lot of people think we do, but we don't. We don't turn coal to diamonds, okay? If you put crap in our processes, you're going to get some of it on the other end. And that's just the way it is. So, what to order, demand planning, how much to order, your MPS, MRP process, your lot sizing decisions, we'll look at those. When is it required? Of course, lead time becomes very important there. And where are you going to store the product? Because, as you know, every location adds inventory. Every location adds inventory. So you have to really look at this. On the controlling end, who cares about inventory in units and days of supply or days on hand? What function usually looks at inventory in units? Units, not dollars. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Who is it cares about inventory in units and days of supply? Supply chain. Now, who is it that monitors the inventory investment? This guy's fast, so he was ahead of me. Finance. They care about the dollars, okay? We look at both at BSF, obviously, you know. So that's the finance focus. And of course, you want accurate inventory. Now, why is accurate inventory pretty important to inventory control? What do you think human beings, also sometimes called planners, what do you think they do if they don't believe the inventory is accurate? They overorder. They overproduce. They fill up the warehouse. Because planners are conditioned like all us human beings, aren't they? And about the third time that sales rep has to come down and tell them what an idiot they are in front of everybody else, you know, they start thinking, maybe I ought to order a little more inventory, you know. So, you know, if you don't have accuracy, you got a problem, okay? Our 5 regional distribution centers, we're a $20 billion company in North America. Our 5 regional distribution centers are at 99.9% accuracy in SAP. Anything below 98, and you're going to have so many problems, you're going to want to get out of that business, okay? So, your first exercise. I want you to note which functions at our companies are focused mostly on 100% service, focused on service. That's what they live for. Which function would love to wake up tomorrow morning and see 0 inventory? Which function talks about nothing but 0 cost? And who is it in the middle getting squeezed by all of them? You'll probably get that one right, okay? So think about it for a minute. Let's talk about it a minute. So which functions at your company are service driven? Sales, marketing, customer service, right? Which function would really love to wake up with 0 inventory tomorrow morning? Finance. Who is it that doesn't care about anything but cost per unit? They eat, breathe it, and live for it. Production. Manufacturing. I worked on the shop floor for 11 years in my career, 3 different positions at 3 different levels. I worked on the shop floor in production, and my boss asked me every day for 11 years, how's the cost per unit looking at? How's the prime yield looking at? I said, well, what about customer service, Phil? You know, I've been studying this AP stuff. Aren't you supposed to ask me about customer service? Phil cursed lots. I can't use his word, but he said, F the customer. Just get the unit cost down, you know. So we definitely got an issue there, right? So who is it sitting right there in the middle? We all know him, right? Supply chain. And who is usually the only department leader at the company that has an inventory goal? The supply chain manager. So, sales, marketing, finance, production. Now here we are in the middle getting squeezed. Pressured by all. We miss a shipment. Sales rep comes by our department to let us know how stupid we are, you know. And it better not happen again. We try to schedule a production change on 2 days' notice. The ops manager, you know, are you some kind of idiot? Have we not trained you properly? So, you know, this is us in supply chain, okay? Finance beats us on the head every month. When are you going to get that inventory down? You know. We have to report to one of them many times. Many times, there is not a supply chain VP sitting up there under the CEO, okay? Many times, we have to report somewhere like finance. So, and of course, our job is to seek the right balance between service, cost, and inventory, which is an everyday fight, but that's what we've got to do. So, inventory strategy and execution status. Given your firm's current status as far as service, cost, inventory goes, would you say that you cannot reduce aggregate inventory without increasing cost or decreasing service? In other words, have you reached an equilibrium where if you reduced inventory 5%, you would devastate your customer service or your production cost? So, how many of you feel like you're close to that equilibrium situation? How many of you feel like you can definitely reduce inventory and not really devastate yourself as far as service or cost, okay? How many of you don't have a clue? I always ask that question. Okay, so at BSF, the answer is no. I was a consultant 14 years. I did many projects. The least inventory reduction I ever accomplished was 15%. I would give them 15% before the assessment. You know, the VP would say, How can you give me 15%? You ain't even done your assessment yet. You know, take my word for it. I give you 15%, okay? Now, I got as much as 25%, but that was harder, you know, and you want to be careful about those promises. Given your firm's current status, how well have the trade-offs been quantified and linked to your inventory decisions? The trade-offs between service costs and inventory quantified. Very well. How many of you feel like you quantified that very well? Somewhat. Not much. Okay, so we got a lot of work to do in inventory control. That's the good news. Because look at all you young folks out there. I don't know about you young folks, but I think you're probably like me when I was 25, 30 years old, you know, is I loved it that everything was in a mess. Everything was in the floor. I mean, I built my reputation on that, you know. Now, if things were fine-tuned and the supply chain guy that was there before had everything, you know, on automatic and everything was great, everybody was happy, you know, I'd pass on that job. You know, who wants that job? You know, keep in mind, the worse it is, the better you're going to look. Okay? Inventory is a value driver. BSF believes in value-based management. We've got a handbook for value-based management, and we've got a section for every function, including supply chain. This is our value driver tree for supply chain management. We're trying to do two things: maximize EBIT, minimize cost of capital, including inventory. Our number one metric at BSF is EBIT after cost of capital. So, delivery reliability and capability, directly impacted by having the right inventory in the right place at the right time. If we take good care of our customers, and we're not doing nearly well enough at BSF, we're going to increase sales revenue, and that makes the board happier, okay? Logistics costs reduce our EBIT, and there's where we include our inventory cost, okay? Of course, inventory is our biggest current asset. At BSF, it represents about 35% of our total current assets. So if we can reduce the inventory, we can reduce the cost of capital and increase our EBIT after cost of capital. Now, up until 2000, BSF started in 1865 with a soda ash factory, okay? Up until 2000, we used gross operating result as our key metric. But what we found out, especially the last 10 years of that, a business can look great on gross operating results, but when you apply the cost of capital and overhead, they suck. You know, we had to learn this the hard way. So we got a measure now that takes everything into consideration, and it's worked out much better for us. Of course, when we change to this metric, inventory gets a lot more attention. A lot more attention with this metric, okay? Inventory is a value driver further defined. So BSF tells us you want to ask some questions to start your due diligence and start your analytics and start your improvement process. You know, it's not just go out there and say, inventory is bad, it hurts the bottom line, so you guys fix it. You know, that's not enough. So we ask these questions. How does the value driver affect EBIT after cost of capital? Less inventory equals lower cost, and lower cost of capital. Does it require cooperation with other units? Important question, guys. Yes, marketing, sales, procurement, manufacturing, and so forth. So I'm very active in the supply chain community, and I'm very active in the IBF, Institute of Business Forecasting. And they do a survey every 3 years about different things. They've done this survey for over 10 years, and they always ask, for your firm, does lack of cross-functional cooperation get in the way of better plan and execution? In 2004, the answer was 70% of the firms said yes. In 2016, 70% of the firms said yes. So we made no progress from 2004 to 2016, okay? It's something we're going to have to continue to work with. Now, with modern technology and digitalization and so forth, that's going to help us, no doubt about it. But we must collaborate to get this inventory down. How can we measure it? We make up our own measures at BSF because we're German-owned. And the Germans spend a lot of money to make sure that you're not going to see our metric on your list, okay? So our metric, one of our key metrics is days invested in inventory, DIV. Now you've heard of days of supply, or days on hand, but we have days invested in inventory because the Germans have their own glossary. What measures can be employed to improve the value driver? Improve your forecasting. I'll share an example of that with you, and better inventory control processes. What other value drivers does this value driver influence? Logistics costs, production costs, delivery performance. So see, we're getting a picture here of where inventory fits in the value driver tree and the things we're going to need to look at to make it better. Which BSF IT systems offer information on the value driver? SAP R3, APO, and Supply Chain Inventory Intelligence. I'll talk more about that later. Now, inventory investment's a shared responsibility, but unfortunately, only the supply chain manager usually gets the KPI, okay? An effective S&OP process is critical to managing inventories. BSF started the S&OP journey in 1991. Dick Lang invented S&OP in his book, Orchestrating Success, in 1988, and BSF was an early adopter. We're still disappointed in our business's ability to properly implement it to where we get the results that we're looking for. We've been through at least 3 iterations already, But we're not giving up. It's an important process, and it can help you with your inventory. So another exercise for you. The firm has $10 million invested in inventory. Their cost of capital is 12%. If they reduce the inventory by 20%, how much do they increase the EBIT after cost of capital? Assume all other data remains the same. Cash to cash, the number one metric for the influence of inventory on cash flow. Cash to cash cycle time. BSF did not adopt this metric for 151 years. And then a couple years ago, Deloitte, our financial auditor, finally convinced us we need to take a look at this. And the board's really glad they did it now that they've done it. In the U.S., it's usually adopted by everyone. Days sales outstanding plus inventory days minus days payable. How long is it taking you to get your raw material purchase back? So you are serving on a supply chain improvement project, which has a goal to reduce the cash to cash by 25%. Given the baseline data and the current status, this one's got the answer. So just forget that dummy messed up and you saw it. Okay? Take a minute to calculate.
There'll be some people that still get it wrong in this room.
Oh, okay. Take a minute to calculate it and see what they did, because it's a true story. This is from one of our supply chain improvement projects at BSF. So it's actual data. It's a true story. So take a look at it and tell me, did they meet their goal? Be sure you can calculate it. You can probably do it in your head, I don't know. As I say, I want to be sure you guys can do some of the basic stuff, so I hope it's not insulting you, but a little practice won't hurt you, okay? So, how much did reducing our inventory by 20%, that should say, it says typo, bear with me. So you take the 10 million times the reduction times the cost of capital, and you increased your EBIT after cost of capital by $240,000. Over here, 70 plus 40 is 110, minus 60 is 50. 65 plus 35 is 95, minus 60 is 35. And they reduced it by 30%, so they did meet their goal. Again, this example is from one of our actual improvement teams. We had a business that really needed to get their cash to cash in better shape, you know, so we poured some resources in there on this one. For days outstanding, we actually, for the first time in their history, had a standard process for OTC, order to cash. Took a lot of time, but we got it done. You know. So, sample global inventory KPIs from BASF. This one over here hits every vice president's personal scorecard every month. It has to be weighted at least 20%, at least 20% of the VP scorecard, okay? Again, we don't use words you recognize, we're a German company, okay? So this is average cost operating inventory value. Average cost operating inventory value. The average cost is a 90-day average. So you can see we're not exactly making great strides in inventory reduction with BASF. We are definitely not a leader in this area, but we're going to try harder. Over here, every month, we report for each of our major business units. We have 70 SBUs, and they get reports too. This is what we call our RBUs, the 13 major businesses in the company. And we report their target against their actual and the deviation every month. The vice presidents really get excited if they're drifting away from their target here. The target is set at the BU level because there's differences. Look at here, 19-day inventory target. You say, 19 days, man, that's world class. It's best in class. Not really, because it's basic intermediates and everything's made in 10 zillion kg quantities and moved in rail cars, you know. So it could be better, okay? You look at this, 124 days. That's our largest import-export business. Import-export business. You know, they're going to have a big number. There's just nothing we can do about it. Here's the bad guy, but he also generates more profit than any of the others. It's the agricultural chemicals business. Terrible business from an inventory perspective. You produce 12 months a year and you sell 6 weeks a year. So it's a terrible business from an inventory, but it makes a lot of money. So how are we going to reduce our inventory? First of all, we need to understand why we have it. What function or purpose is it serving? So, we have cycle stock. Should be a balance of carrying and ordering costs. We're not as scientific with this at BASF as we need to be. One of my funniest stories at BASF, when I took over as supply chain manager at that plant, I was scanning my raw material inventory report, and I noticed one item made up 40% of my raw material inventory. Cost $45 a pound, which is pretty expensive for us back then, this many years ago. So, I go into the raw material planner's Ted's office, and I said, Ted, I need to talk to you about this item here. Why are we buying 40,000 pounds at a time at $45 a pound? So if you do the math, you know, a lot of money, okay? Ted looked at me without hesitation, and he said, Alan, any idiot knows that. That's what a truck holds. So I was flabbergasted because I knew the product came from 90 miles away. And I knew the lead time was 3 days, you know. And so I had to give Ted some lessons on inventory control, okay? But we did make quite a bit of progress there. So it's not necessarily what a truck holds that we're looking for, okay? Safety stock, inventory to protect against fluctuations in supply and demand. We're going to look a little bit at safety stock. If you have bell curve consumption or demand, use the statistics. If you don't. Because when you abuse bell curve statistics in supply chain, terrible things happen. Terrible things happen. Transit stock. BSF has a tremendous transit stock investment. We had to get SAP reprogrammed so we could keep an eye on it, because standard R3, when we bought it, didn't even include transit stock. So we have some good reports now. Heavy investment. And then we have that thing that represents 28% of our inventory. 28%. By the way, did I mention that our inventory is 10 billion euros? That's with a B after the 10. You know? That's our current inventory, okay? 28% of it is in this stuff that we call dysfunctional stock, okay? Off-spec, aged, obsolete, excess, and, of course, IWIC inventory we have a lot of. Who knows what IWIC inventory is? I wish I knew why I had. We got a lot of that stuff, okay? So you need to understand why that inventory is there. We also have anticipation stock for plant shutdowns and seasonality, and we have hedging stock for price increases. Hedging is primarily done for major raw materials by a central group in Europe. Very serious stuff. They hedged oil at $120 a barrel about 10 years ago. I'll never forget this. They hedged oil at $120 a barrel. Within 3 months, it's $55 a barrel. So some heads did roll, okay? Some heads roll. But that's legitimate. Now, during the past 6 years, I've taught over 1,200 supply chain employees from 25 different countries inventory management. I'm going to share with you the BSF answer to these questions, but I want to see where you think your firm is at. Statistical safety stocks linked to forecast performance or demand variance, quantitative. How many of you would say at your company that represents 10 to 20% of the cases? How many would say 20 to 50%? How many would say more than 50%? Okay, you have a couple of best practice folks here. Use of item level targets as key input to replenishment decisions. Updated often if needed, okay? How many of you would say, as far as using item level targets to make individual replenishment decisions and your current status, 10 to 20%, 20 to 50%, more than 50%. Okay? Same thing at BSF, we got issues. Use of days of supply analysis to control order quantities based on current demands or consumption. Days of supply analysis. 10 to 20%. 20 to 50. Greater than 50. Okay. Use of volume variance analysis to establish stocking policies, forecast approach, and manage risk and so forth. Volume variance analysis. I'm going to show you an example in a minute. One of the hottest, most important things in supply chain. Say 10 to 20% at your firm would do that. 20 to 50. Greater than 50. Okay, so you're kind of reinforcing my point. BSF's in the 10 to 20% box for all of this, okay? We can talk about the digitalized world, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I'm going to overwhelm y'all with that in a little bit, okay? But where we're at today, we've got to get these basics in place. We've got to work harder and get these basics in place. At BSF, those of us in training and process expertise say we want to be brilliant at the basics. Brilliant at the basics, okay? Volume variance analysis. In the chemical industry, Bayer was the leader here. They started using it in the mid-90s. BSF's a lagger on a lot of this stuff, and so we were a little late getting in the game, but we're heavy users now. You have your volume, ABC. Thresholds are business specific, based on sales. You have your variance, XYZ. Variability in sales. Coefficient of variation is equal to standard deviation of the period sales, or forecast, if you're using forecast error, divided by the average period sales. That's the definition of the CV ratio. Then, based on where it's at in the matrix, you're going to make some decisions. It's an AX item, high volume, low variance. Use your statistical forecasting system. Use your statistical safety stocks. It's a AZ item, high volume, terrible variance. Collaborate with the customer for better planning. Get close to that customer. Try to get joint planning in place, okay? It's a low volume, it's a low volume, low variance, aggregate it up. Maybe don't forecast at the package level. Maybe only forecast at the product level if the volume's really low. You might want to consider putting it on make to order based on the volume. Low volume.
Are you assuming the normal distribution there for that covariance of variation? Like, what do you guys use if your data is not?
Well, we're using the CV to determine if it approximates normal distribution. I'm going to explain that in a minute, okay? Yes, we're using the CV to determine it. The CV ratio is a great determinant of whether you have bell curve or not, okay? Let me show you an example. So, volume variance now, very critical for setting stocking policies, for setting forecast policies, etc., for deciding if you can use statistical safety stuff. So, in our better practice businesses, we refuse to give the business a forecast for a CZ item. We refuse. When they get their forecast from supply chain, if it's CZ, there's nothing there but blanks. Because if it's CZ, we don't have a forecasting tool that does CZ. And we're not going to lie about it. We're going to put the whammy on them. In our best practice businesses, they have 2 workshops a year to look at the data with sales. And they talk about it. You know, the guy buys 1 drum every 3 or 4 months at random. I'm not forecasting that, you know. So, very important. So, an exercise for you. Actual BSF data. Here's your 12-month sales. Here's your standard deviation, your average sales, and your COV ratio, this divided by this. Here's your ABCXYZ class. One of these should be placed on make to order. One of these should be forecasted at a more aggregated level. One of these should collaborate with the customer to avoid forecasting. One of these we can use our conventional forecasting tools. So take a minute for A, B, C, and D to come up with which one you think belongs where, and then we'll look at the answer. I'm okay? Good.
How's the standard deviation greater than the mean? The standard deviation is greater.
Well, look at your demand pattern. No sales, sales, no sales, no sales, sales. That's where it's coming from, okay? Have any of y'all been exposed to the use of this for stocking policies and forecasting policies? I'm just curious. You know. Okay, well, I'm teaching you something you need to know this, okay? Okay, so let's look at the answers together. Article B. Look at the pattern. 436, 0, 998, 136, 272. So Article B, we changed to make the order stats. We told sales and marketing it's totally unforecastable, and we're making inventory mistakes. You're going to have to put it on make the order. That's what we did with Article B. Forecast at an aggregate level, Article C. Look at the sales. This is in kgs per month, by the way. 136 kgs in a month. Now, in the chemical industry, this ain't much. This is like what's left in the bottom of the drum, okay? So for that one, we forecasted at the product level and packaged to order. One of the hottest trends at my company is postponement. packaging to order for low volume sales. The repack machines are not expensive, 150 grand, for example, you know, and we're doing more and more of that, packaging to order. Okay, this one here, D, where are we? Oh, wait. Collaborate with the customer to avoid forecasting that thing. Notice that every 3 months, they buy about 18,000. Now, our sales guys, the marketing guys, I think I told you earlier that I never use marketing intelligence in the same sentence. But anyhow, our sales and marketing guys, they said, that's easy to forecast. Look at that pattern. 0, 0, 18,000. 0, 0, 18,000. That's easy to forecast. It's not easy to forecast. You're going to have a hard time finding that algorithm, okay? So, the demand planner told the sales rep, I want you to ask the customer what's going on because they know something I don't know. So, he asked the customer about it. The customer said, oh, I have a contract with the government and I'm going to take 18,000 every 3 months and I can give you the sales orders in advance. You shouldn't forecast that. Now, this was 18 months into the forecasting process. And every month, we were either overstocked or out of stock, okay? So your sales guys, you know that, I don't have a whiteboard, but you know how assume breaks down into the 3 syllables?
Yeah.
Assume, you know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Never assume that a sales guy knows his head from a hole in the ground. That would be the biggest, baddest assumption you ever make, okay? So, you know, don't do that. Inventory and a replenishment cycle. So, definitions. 1/2 of your replenishment cycle, or quantity divided by 2, gives you your average cycle. Lot size or cycle stock is 1/2 of your purchase or production quantity. Safety stock, calculate or estimate based on variance in supply and demand, quantity and timing. Transit stock, average daily consumption times lead time in days. Then we add these 3 together to come up with our inventory target. You know, this is our inventory target. Order quantity or batch size divided by 2, plus safety stock, plus transit stock if you own it. At BSF, 35% of our business is internal, and the buying affiliate owns it when the selling affiliate does the goods issue. That's a lot of inventory. U.S. buys a lot of product from Germany. Every bit of that inventory on the ocean belongs to the U.S. So, you know, it's a pretty important parameter. I had a planner come to me years ago and say, Alan, I'm an import planner, and I don't understand what's going on, but I got so much more inventory than I tell the boss I'm going to have. You know, she wasn't counting the transit inventory, so you know it's pretty significant. It can be very significant. Order quantities and safety stocks. I wanted y'all just to do a couple quick examples. They are important topics. The business has a finished goods inventory target of 45 days and a maximum batch size policy of 60 days. The product is produced every month. The current batch size is 15,000 kgs and sales average 4,300 per month. What is the current batch size in days of supply? Is the batch size within our policy? What is the maximum batch size that meets our policy? Safety stock, service level factor times standard deviation in demand times the square root of lead time divided by data period. There are several lead time adjustments available in your textbooks, okay? The worst one that I've seen used is square root of lead time. Because this product happened to come from India, and the lead time was 120 days, and they were multiplying the square root of 120 to get their safety stock. They had to lease 7 new warehouses in 4 months, okay? So don't use the square root of lead time. That's not a good one, okay? So, coefficient of variation is standard deviation divided by your average. If greater than 0, you better look out about bell curve statistics. You're going to get in real trouble. Given average demand is equal to 12,000 kgs per month, Standard deviation of demand is 6,000 per month. Lead time is 120 days. Service level safety factor has been set at 1.65 or 95% service. The safety factor comes from the Z table for bell curve distribution. And that's one of the reasons you would never use statistical safety stock without bell curve distribution. Because the factor you're using came from the bell curve distribution table. Okay? So that's very important. So take a minute to calculate the things in blue here, and then we'll look at the answers again. Those guys have more fun we are.
Yeah. Well, you gave us math to do.
Yeah.
With no calculator, I can't figure it out, right?
Well, everybody's got their phone until somebody asks if you have a calculator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you've taught as many people and as much as I have the past 25 years, you don't assume anything. I have people in my classes in North America that just walked out of the top 3 schools with a 4-year supply chain degree. Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State. And they'll say, Alan, I got a 4-year degree in supply chain management, and they're sending me to basic planning course. Guys, they can't do halfies. I ain't lying. It's important to check this out. So days of supply, you divide your batch size by your daily demand, and you get 105 days, which is outside your 60-day policy. Maximum batch size that meets your policy is 60 days times your daily sales, or 8,600 kgs. These examples came from one of my consulting projects with our dyes business in Mexico. They told me they had a 45-day finished goods target. They told me that they only make 60 days or less of stuff, okay? So I do a data analysis based on 12 months of data. 80% of the time their batch sizes are out of policy. 80%, And of course they're not going to get to 45 days. They were at 80-something days, So policies are great if you actually use them for something, but otherwise not so much. Safety stock is equal to service level times standard deviation times square root of lead time divided by data. So 1.65 for our safety factor times our standard deviation times our square root of lead time divided by data period gives us 19,800 kgs. Again, there are several available lead time adjustments. Just simulate it and see how it works for you. We like this one. This one works well for us. But if you've got a different one, simulate it and see how it works for you. CV ratio, 6,000 standard deviation divided by average demand is 0.5. So statistics is a valid approach. Statistics is a valid approach. If it's above 1, your bell curve statistic will get you in the real trouble. Okay? Our first business that turned on statistical safety stock really paid a price. They turned on statistical safety stock and used it in the system. And within 7 months, their inventory was up 60%. 60% in 7 months. So they called me in to help them, and I did my volume variance analysis. 50% of their products had COVs at 1.5 or worse. 50%, so we had a lot of work to do in that business. By the way, my favorite tool that us supply chain guys have, my favorite tool, MBF. MBF. Management by factual embarrassment. Management by factual embarrassment. As a consultant, I was the best with it. I can tell you I've embarrassed a lot of people, okay? We don't have any line authority in supply chain. We seldom have any line authority. But we're expected to get the job done. And MBFE really helps us. You put the chart up there that shows the guys are total idiots.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to do that sometimes. So how did I use it in over forecast? I'll give you an example. In over forecast. Big product of one of my plants, over forecast. I went to the sales rep for this one product and I said, you've over forecasted this product 25% 3 straight months. And now I've got inventory that I really have no room for. You know, I said, we need an adjustment here. And so I laid it out, just me and him, I laid it out, you know. Next month, what happens? 25% over forecast. So for the meeting that month, I brought my chart in, my MBFE chart. And I said, I had the lease warehouse space at the third party this month because these idiots are over forecasting 4 consecutive months, you know. Sales and marketing, by the way, at my plant, at that large plant when I was supply chain manager, sales and marketing hated me so much, you wouldn't believe it. When we were coming down the corridor opposite each other, they would step over to the other side of the corridor to keep from having to speak. So one of my employees asked me, said, Alan, doesn't it really bother you that sales and marketing hate you so much? I smile every day because I'm doing my job. If there's a supply chain guy that sales and marketing loves, get rid of him. Get rid of him because you got the wrong person, okay? No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. You know, you got the wrong person. You need to get somebody else. Inventory management and the journey to the digital age, okay? See, Tom, I brought it with me.
There you go.
So, BSF since 2009 has spent 300 million euros in 8 years developing a world-class supply chain reporting and analytics system. World-class. No one else in the chemical industry comes close. By the way, Gartner voted us number 16 in the world last year on their supply chain assessment, and we were the only chemical company to make the top 25. So we're pretty good in some cases, okay? So this is our world-class supply chain intelligence system. Single point of truth. It's enabled all our units to move to maturity level 2 with some internal integration, okay? It's supported by one version of SAP Global and one global business warehouse. Now, we're a $80 to $90 billion business. We have 72 SBUs. For us to be on one version of SAP is something, okay? We were the first big company to do it. Now, we set the tone for the chemical industry, so others are doing it now. 3M spoke at the thing I was at Thursday and Friday, and their head of supply chain planning said they've started their project now to go to one version of SAP. Why is this important? You can't have integrated global planning and execution when you have 14 versions that don't speak to each other. 3M had, she didn't give us the exact number, but enough that it's going to take them until 2022 to get to one. 2022, and they started last year, okay? So people learn the hard way. So BSF was the first big company to go to one version of R3. Project One, we call it. It's really paying off for us. So our supply chain intelligence is an evolving tool, gets bigger and better every year. Inventory went first. Capital, inventory went first. So our supply chain inventory intelligence is our best. I highlighted some of the key reports. We have global KPIs. Global KPIs. They are reported against every one of the 72 SBUs every month. They're global KPIs. They're also reported in an aggregate against the RBU vice president. We have dead stock reports, aging reports, shelf life reports, but these are just the canned reports. The power of the tool is you can call up a query screen and you can get it to list every field in our R3 system. Every field in our R3 system. And you can tell it what you want. I want these 20 things for the last 12 months, you know. So the query capability is tremendous. So we have all these canned reports, we call them, but the query capability is tremendous. We have point-in-time reports, year-to-date, 12 months, actual, based on actuals, based on average cost, quantity reports, value reports. So really world-class reporting and analytics system. And I'm glad my company had the foresight to do this. It gets better every year. We've added freight analytics. Freight analytics. You can slice and dice your freight to the levels you wouldn't believe. You know. We've added SCI service. On-time delivery is key there. We use supply chain event manager in some of our businesses. It's not mandatory, it is voluntary, but supply chain event manager, where if a movement misses the planned date, it makes an exception report. Especially, we use it especially on imports and exports because of the long lead time. So if a movement misses a date, you get an exception report. The system could actually auto-email the planner 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My son's worked for a company that did that. But in Germany, they have a thing called the Works Council. And the Works Council and the government make the labor decisions 50-50. And BSF cannot make such a decision without Works Council approval. And the Works Council said, you don't bother our guys once they leave the plant. You know, you can't put in any system where they would be bothered once they leave the plant. And that's the way it works in Germany. It's a very nice laws in Germany. I like it. Hey, 36-hour work week, 8 weeks vacation the day you hire in. Not bad, guys. I'm telling you, there's a lot of things I like in the social. This is a global KPI from our supply chain intelligence system. These reports all are set up to come out automatically, you know. So here they're looking at their DIV, the blue bar, and they're looking at their kg total quantity up here. They know what they want to look at based on the nature of the business. In a bulk business, you look at things differently than you do in a package business. Here's an SCI fully automated dysfunctional report. You have your SBUs listed over here. I just made these names up. All of this is coming out of SCI 100% automated. No human intervention. You know, humans don't touch this. So you have your aged, your blocked, and this over here, percent of total that's aged, percent of total that's blocked. They set their target at 4%. Now, I argued with them a little bit because look how bad they are. But they said, but Alan, we should be 4%. So we want to leave it like we should. So notice how many of them have red lighted because they're over target. So, you know, in my opinion, I might have set the target a little lower just based on getting this many red lights shipped. So the data source, again, is SCI. Artificial intelligence, level 1, we've been using it for many years. You may or may not know that because level 1 is just rule-based with human logic. So in 1989, at our Anderson plant, I was supply chain manager, we implemented the first production schedule optimization in BSF enabled by one of these softwares. The software was named Mimi. It's still in the market today, but it's been through 3 different owners. We had 56 colors to get through 14 machines. 56 coders to get through 14 machines. So we optimize the production schedule, profit maximization within the capacity and inventory constraints. So you set the objective up and you set the rules up, and then the machine takes over. These kind of optimizations are common as dirt now, so AI1 has been around a long time. Here's our AI1 for the process we use today for schedule optimization. The software vendor is OM Partners. They are tremendous in this arena. So we input value parameters from controlling, demand forecast, capacities, inventories from SCI, bombs. We optimize, we maximize our EBIT within the capacity and inventory constraints. You got to have an objective statement. And then we have lots of rules. The output of the optimization, sales targets, production plan, external purchases, raw material demand, distribution plan for supply chain, and inventory plan for finance. So this is AI1 that we've only been using this one about 4 years. It's relatively new and it's pretty high powered. So this is AI1. AI2, of course, is when you go to the machine thinking and so forth. And we are going to get there. We're just not there yet. You kind of have to do these things in order, So we have an inventory analytics center of excellence. This is a typical employee from the IM Center of Excellence. Okay, this guy right here. These are the guys you got to have to going to succeed. We've got a demand planning center of excellence with the same kind of guys. PhDs in computer science, PhDs in math and statistics. Biggest nerds in the world, really, I mean, they're going to rule the world anyway, we know that, but it's not going to be as long as some people think, okay? So if you're interviewing for that kind of position and the guy comes in looking like this, you better sign him up quick, okay? So, inventory analytics service offering. Determine optimal inventory strategy and replenishment policy. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I know that would bore you to death, but they use very high-powered analytics and heuristics. They use very high-powered software. Now, it's not at the point of machine learning yet. We're not that far, but it's high-powered stuff, okay? So they're not real popular yet with our businesses, and part of the reason is our businesses don't accept just yet the black box syndrome that we're all going to accept, okay? They don't accept, hey, the geek runs it through the machine, gives me the number, my job is just to execute the number. I don't need that much between the ears for that, do I? So, but they don't like this, they say. But how did it get that number? And the guy pulls out 10 pages of code. You'd have to see these diagrams, okay? He said, well, you start here, And of course, after a minute, the guy gives up, But that's the world we're coming to, So we're going to have to get used to that. No way about it. Many firms recognize the challenges with moving many planners into the digital age. So why do we have centers of excellence? As I told you, Thursday and Friday, I heard the director of global planning for 3M speak, and she was speaking on the fact that they now have 3 global planning centers and 0 planning above detailed plant scheduling in the business. 100% of the demand forecasting, of the master scheduling, of the S&OP is done at 3 places. And when she was asked why, she had lots of good answers. But one of them was, would you rather try to find 200 of these guys? 200 of these guys to take care of your business and move in this new environment? Or would you rather find a dozen? So 3M has already recognized and taken action. We can't move 200 everyday planners into this new environment. It just ain't going to happen, So BSF doesn't realize that yet. We're a little slow sometimes. So supply chain 4.0, end-to-end supply chain planning and execution in the digital age. BSF has begun the journey. We've run one pilot project and it went pretty well. So we've got a process and software model defined now, and we're starting our second design and implementation now. This is where we were at before. This is our SC 4.0 model for planning. I'm talking supply chain planning and execution here. We have Kinaxis setting in the clouds. You know, everything sets in the clouds now, right? So we have Kinaxis set up here in the clouds, Kinaxis Rapid Response. Kinaxis is the leader in digitalized collaboration between customers and suppliers. They've worked hard at that leadership position, and they are recognized as that, okay? So they're setting up here in the cloud, and our suppliers, our customer, and our distributor, and our production are all talking to the cloud, and the cloud's passing them information. Now, we obviously have to come up with the rules, the objectives and rules, to turn this into action in the digital age. So we're integrating planning and customer and supplier and synchronizing with execution near real time. So part of the project is, it doesn't do any good to bust your rear to come up with the best decision for tomorrow morning if you can't execute. And BSF has that issue a lot, okay? So in this case, you're putting in the ability to execute with the ability to plan. You know, it's coming in together. Because the way we used to do things, we showed you all this beautiful planning we could do, but we couldn't execute 5% of it. So what have we really done? You know, so this is a much better approach. Now that's tomorrow. Now day after tomorrow. Third. No, okay.
On your cloud there, a lot of companies struggle with the security of data going up there. You have all kinds of things that are there, and all it takes is one person to hack in. And you know, how did your company go through that process to make sure that?
The Germans are so big on security, it's unreal. Okay, and we spend so much on it. For example, we don't allow any direct connectivity to our SAP. We're not showing it in the picture, but everything comes through Elemica. Everything comes through our security software set in the middle. You know, we're very big on security. What they did at Rapid Response is they built a reputation, and they can show you stuff, okay, that they've got that base covered as well as anybody can cover it. You know, but you know, technically, I can't stand here and talk about it. You know, so we have a two-pronged approach. A guarantee from Kinaxis on their end, and they show our IT people, you know, and then we put the middleware in here between our systems and these things passing information. You know, we claim we do that for reformatting, but not really. We like that security. Nothing comes directly into SAP. Okay. Day after tomorrow, virtually every aspect of business will be transformed through the vertical integration of research and development, manufacturing, marketing, sales, and other internal operations, and new business models based on these advances. In effect, we are evolving towards the complete digital ecosystem. So that's where we're going, okay? Some faster than others. BSF in the chemical industry is actually ahead, and we're never ahead. So how did we get ahead, you know, because we're never ahead? Our board decided that this is so important, we got to act now. We can't wait for the DuPonts and Dows and others to make moves, you know, that we got to act now. So we're actually kind of taking the lead in this area right here. So the path forward in inventory management. Business has only two functions, marketing and innovation. I like this quote a lot because in the digital age, we really want to keep this in mind. Marketing and innovation. So in your job and in your position, you're probably not marketing the product. You know, if you are, fine, but you're probably not. So what do you have left here? You've got to be innovative, okay? We've got to have the innovation. You want to update your inventory management strategy to include changes made possible by the digital age. For example, what's the role of social media? We use Facebook in our businesses. We use Twitter in our businesses. But we have a well-defined role. We don't use it to go out there and say, you know, John Doe over business so-and-so really sucks. You know, it's not used like that, okay? It's used for a business purpose that's well-defined, you know. But it's coming in. Artificial intelligence, there's just no stopping point. Thursday, the head of the Artificial Intelligence Institute of America spoke to us for about an hour and a half. I was totally overwhelmed, I've got to admit. But he said, you know that we're already experimenting with machines that learn and then act independently. He said we're doing a lot of that, you know, and it's not as far in the future as people think. That the machine will learn and then turn around and act independently. Now, he's big on the autonomous cars, self-driven cars, so someone raised their hand and said, is that thing really going to think? Because they were nervous about that autonomous car, you know. But there's really no limit. And there's a danger because the people that program these things and so forth, they're not always going to be able to put the checks and balances. He kept referring to the Terminator movies. He said, if you want to know where we're going, watch the Terminator movie. You know, he kept saying that. Determine where you are in regards to the maturity evolution. Do you have best practices implemented? Do you have harmonized metrics in place? Do you have advanced analytics available? And develop detailed plans to address your deficiencies. At BSF, I told you 80% of our businesses are in that 10 to 20% range. We got a lot of work to do. And when we make our plans in those businesses, the plans are going to focus on the basics pretty much. This is something you have to do. Educate and train your staff in inventory planning and control. Tools and techniques. APEX is a great source for your basic education in inventory management, CPIM and the principles course. Remember, you cannot deploy technology successfully without competent people. If you don't believe that, check the status of your ERP implementation. If you don't believe that statement, okay? Why is it that 80% of our planners globally still have Excel sitting there for order management when we got a $9 billion system that does pretty good at order management, okay? You know? But we got a lot of work to do with the individuals, guys. Now, I do another speech where I talk about this people process technology a lot. We know our problem at BSF, we just can't get leadership to listen, is when we budget those projects, 60% for software, 30% for consulting, 10% for training and change management, 10%. So who is it that controls your payback on the technology and process and software? It's a big problem. Assess the need for an inventory management center of excellence if your firm has many units and many planners involved in inventory control. Then you're going to want a center of excellence. The move to advanced planning and execution using artificial intelligence and digital workplace tools will be much more difficult if the scope includes masses. So when BSF looked back at why our APODP implementation for forecasting was not very successful. We had 72 SBUs. We had over 200 demand planners. Of those 200, 100 of them had other jobs. Because, if you're A demand planner for a business that sells 20 million a year, that's not a job. You're going to have something else to do, you know. So when we look back at that, we just did not handle the people aspect properly. You know, it was a big issue for us.